Hi everybody, this is Randy Baker from Composition and Visual Design. Today we're just going to go over the FX6 menu setup for the CVD class. So this is really important that you set this menu up correctly so that you can record everything you need to record properly in this class. The key to getting a new high-end camera, and when you get a new high-end camera like this, it's really exciting. But you know, this menu system on this camera is a very intimidating menu system. There are 11 different menu tabs, main menu tabs. There are 2 different menu types. There are 500 submenus, so it can become a bit overwhelming. Hopefully with this short guide here, we'll walk you through this and you get to know the setup of the FX6 very well. That's the #1 thing that will really allow you to get out of this camera, its full potential. So it's extremely important that you set this up correctly from the onset. And again, this class has a very specific menu settings that you must use, and you'll go through this in a video below this video, and I'll send you out a color-coded PDF, and then we'll also go through this in the Tuesday live class of week 1. So first of all, let's start off by talking about the 2 types of menus on this. So if you look at the side of your camera, there's a menu button on the side of your camera. So if you press the menu button in once, you get this screen, and this is what's called the status menu. And if you look up in the upper top right corner there, you'll see a little 1 of 10 here, and so that's important that you kind of understand that. It's telling you that there are 10 pages here. Now, traditionally on a Sony camera, these status menus would only show you how this camera was set up. You couldn't actually change anything, but Sony's kind of changed that a little bit here, and they've included this status menu so you could actually go in and change this. We're going to go through this in detail in week 3. I want you to get to know the main menu, and then we'll walk you through how to do this but anything with a gray box around it you can actually touch. And if you have the touch screen option, which we're not using in this class, on this camera, you can actually touch on that screen and change those. If you look at that, that tells you that there are 10 screens there. And if you use your multifunction switch on the camera, which is the big knob on the left of the camera there, you can cycle through. And you can see as I go back, it's the main menu, it's the camera menu, and this is telling you what your white balance, your ISO, your zebra, your gamma, your ND filters, and if you have a scene file turned on. And then a project window, I skipped one. There's audio. This is where you set up your audio. Tells you how your audio is set up, and you can see the audio working on this. There's the project window. These are all your settings for your frame rate and your codec, and whether or not you're going to be shooting full frame or 35, and your video format, whether you're 1080 or UHD 4K, or in this case here, we're DCI 4K 3840 by 2160, and it tells you what the shooting mode is, and we'll go through all of that. And a bunch of other functions there. And if you go to 5, that's telling you what your monitoring setup, how you've got your monitoring set up for your output of the monitors. And 6 is all the assignable buttons that you have set up, which we're going to go through and set all these up individually. 7 tells you how much battery life you have on the camera, and whether or not you have it plugged into DC in power. 8 tells you how much media you're recording on have left on each card, and 9 tells you if you're using any of the network functions on this, which we're not even covering in this class, whether or not you have those turned on and how you're using those. And then 10 is another network function for transferring files, so you can actually upload files from this computer. It's rather slow unless you have a very fast setup. Now, here's what I want you to notice on this. If you look at the gray boxes on there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gray boxes, 7 gray boxes on that screen that you can change. There are 5 on this screen. There are really none. Well, the microphone source you can change, and the sensitivity and the wind filters. 6, 7, 8 on this screen that you can change, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on this screen you can change. And then from 6 on, you can't change anything here, can't change anything here, can't change anything here, can't change anything here, can't change anything here. So that's just the status menu, and there are a limited number of things you can change. But again, we'll go through this a little bit more in week 3 on here. So here's the thing: if you go back out, press the menu button again, it takes you back out. Now again, if I press and hold the menu button for 2 seconds, watch what happens. You get into a main menu system, and this is the main menu where you set up the camera. And there are 11 different tabs, what we call them, on the left-hand side there. There's a user tab, which we're going to set up so you can put in there all the main settings that you're going to be using in this class, and you're just going to be using this. After we get this set up, you're only going to be using this top one. And then there's a shooting. That these are things that you change on a regular basis while you're shooting. So it's stuff that you would normally use. And then there's project. And project are things where, like, each new project that you shoot, you know, the base setting, the ISO, what your record format is, whether it's 1080 or 4K, and you know, you can also go in here and shoot interval recording. And then there's paint and look, and these are if you're setting up your camera. This is more an advanced thing. We're not really going to be going through this in this class. There's timecode media, and this is where you set up your timecode or your user bits, or also where you format your media at. And this is really kind of an important, formatting your media is probably one of the top things you'll be doing in the menu structure here. And we're going to set that up for user. And then you've got monitoring. This shows you everything that you're going to be monitoring. So as a general rule, anything that you see in a monitoring menu is not going to appear on the screen. It just only appears in the monitor. So this is all your monitoring. This is your rule of thirds grid and all your viewfinder settings, and how you have your output going out on this camera. This is where your everything that has to do with audio input and output is in this menu. Thumbnail, you'll notice this is grayed out. This is your playback menu. This is only active when you're in thumbnail mode. When you're actually in playback, you can hit the menu button again and that will light up. Technical, these are all the things that you would set up your camera for, the personally, like whether or not you want your front tally switch on or your back tally switch on. Talking about that, if you want to throw up color bars or tone on this, and if you want to change your ND preset settings on this, or if you want to, you know, get into your touch operation, which allows you to touch your screen, your LCD screen, and change things. And we'll talk about why we're not using that in this class down here. And then if you want to set up a record review, which we're going to set up on a button, and then whether or not you can go into clear image zoom, which is a 2x digital zoom that this camera has, which again we're not going to use in this class. So that's a lot of things in the class. Network, again, you can upload, you can do live streaming from this camera. You have to have a modem, and it's a little bit more complex than, but it's way more advanced than a basic class here, so we're not really going through there. Access authentication is something that you'll help set up if you're going to be using the CBM software, which is Content Browser Mobile software that we're going to have you download in week 1, or as part of the, actually you'll get that as part of the hardware software checklist that I'm sending along with this video. And so you should download that, and that will allow you to use your iPad or your cell phone as a wireless monitor, which is pretty cool. A little bit of lag on there, but not too bad. And then maintenance, this is where you go through and you can set up the basic setup of the camera. What language you want, you set up your time of day and your date. You can reset all of this if you want to go back through after we set this all up. If you want to reset all the menus, you can go back in here. It tells you how many hours you have and what the version of the firmware is. So those are the 11. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by showing you going through each of these. There's about 6 of these in here that we're actually going to go in and change. And there's really not that much to change on here, so you just have to know that. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is how to navigate through the main menu structure. So you can navigate through the camera using the multifunction toggle switch, multifunction dial that's on the front of your camera, right above where it says cancel back. There's a cancel back button, and right above where the red ND button is lit up. Now, you can also change these by using the top handle multifunction 8-way pad is what it's called. It's just a little multifunction left-right. It goes, 8 different directions, and you can, use your thumb. It's a thumb pad, basically. And then also on the back of the right handle, there is a multifunction pad. And so if you can go left and right, go into submenus and go up and down on that, and if you push it in, it selects it. But most of the time, you're probably going to be using the multifunction dial, which is the big dial that you use for pretty much everything on this camera, and that's on the front left of the camera, the very front of the camera there. So you can go in and out, Okay, you can go up and down like this. And if you go into a menu and you want to go into the submenu, you just press that in. It takes you into the submenu. And if you want to go in even farther within the submenu, into the sub-menu, you can press it again. And then you can always go back. Now, if you can scroll up and then hit back, or if you're in a submenu like this and you want to go back, right below that dial is a button that's called back and cancel. So if you just hit that, it automatically takes you back as well. So let's start off by talking about, now again, there is a touchscreen. You can't set this up for touchscreen operations, so you can go in and do this stuff with touchscreen. But let me tell you why I don't think that's a good idea in this class. Number one, everything you can do in the touchscreen, you can do in the menu settings, of the way we're setting this up using the multifunction toggle switch or one of those 8-way pads. Probably as fast as you can do it on your screen. Number two, there is no electronic viewfinder on this camera. Most video cameras have an electronic viewfinder, which is actually an electronic monitor that is a little bit better than just looking at a flat LCD, especially when you're outside shooting under bright daylight and stuff. There isn't one on this. And so this is the only way you see the images on this camera. So if you start sticking your greasy, dirty fingers on that and tapping over and over again, scratching it with your fingernail and doing things like that, over time you can deteriorate the quality of the screen so bad that it makes it hard to see or set the focus on the LCD or even see the screen. So the touchscreen is not set up very well on this camera, and everything you can do with the touchscreen, like I said, I find that you can do a bit faster just by using one of the multifunction dials or pads. You can turn this on, but I don't spend time much going through it in this class. I do have resources in the vault that you can look at if you want to dive deeper in this and try to use it. So let's talk about the main file structure here. We've gone through the 11 tabs, and the shooting, like I said, controls settings that frequently need to be changed during shooting. That include settings like exposure and white balance, focus, and image stabilization. We're going to go through and just going to walk you through real fast everything that needs to change. Now, in the color-coded PDF, anything in yellow that needs to change will be changed. So what we're going to do in this class, first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into the sub-menu here by pressing Enter, and you're going to go down to base sensitivity, ISO gain, and you're going to go into that, and you're going to go down, scroll down to base sensitivity, and you're going to change that from low to high. Okay, and you saw how much brighter that made the camera. And just click OK, and that will go out of that. Now that made the camera decidedly more dark or bright, and so we should talk about this, and we'll go through this more in detail. But there is what's known as a dual base ISO. So you have a base ISO for inside and a base ISO for outside. Base ISO for outside is really the low, and that's 800. The base ISO for inside is 2800. So it's about 6 stops more light that you have coming into the camera when you're on high, which makes this an extremely easy to use low light camera. Probably one of the best low light cameras I've ever had. So we're going to be shooting inside in week 1 and while you're testing this out and setting up. So we're going to have this on high just to give you an idea. But you should learn, once we get the user menu set up, you should learn how to go back and forth and go between low and high. And that's one of the main menu items we'll have set up for you so you can easily do that. I think we even will set it up as a one of the 11 assignable buttons. So that's the first thing you want to change, high, on this camera. And then we're going to get out of that, okay? And again, you can hit back and go back. And then in that menu setting, we're also going to go down to shutter. So now while you're at base sensitivity, you want to go down a little bit more. Sorry, let me get out of this. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go down to shutter. Oh, I passed it. There we go. Shutter. And I'm going to turn shutter on. So you can turn shutter on and off here. Shutter speed on and off. And so we're going to turn that on. So we have our shutter activated, and we're going to get out of this. And I will do a much longer video down the road where I go through every. I'm going to be working with Cubby Thompson, who's one of the Sony engineers and tech guys, and we're going to be going through a menu, go through each of these settings and explain what they are and when you would use them, when you wouldn't. But right now, in this first week, so you don't get overwhelmed, we're just going to really go through the basics that you need to change. So you want to change shutter speed on. Again, you can scroll up or you can hit back. And then I think that's the only thing here. Yep. So then we're going to go back again. We're going to get out of that, and we're going to go down to project. So hit the back button, and then you're going to scroll down to project. And in project, you're going to go into frequency. You're going to hit project, and you're going to go down to the record format right here and go into frequency, and you're going to change that to, well, it's actually 23.98. That's what you want to change it to. Everything else, and then you're going to go down to video format, and you're going to change the video format to 1920 by 1080. So here are the three video formats you're going to record. 1920 by 1080, which is high def, 3840 by 2160p, which is 4K, it's called UHD, ultra high definition, and then 4096 by 2160p, which is DCI 4K, which is real high-end 4K. So you can do these. This will all record 10-bit 422 color space on this, and we'll talk about that as we go through. And then it's going to ask you when you change it, if you want to execute this, and you say yes, and it changes that, and you go back up and get out of that and go back. And then you're going to go down to I think that's it in that, and we're going to get out of that, and we're going to go down to, nope, we're going to go down to assignable buttons in here. So let's continue down on this, and we're going to go down to assignable buttons. And then you're going to change this a lot. And so you're going to go in, you're going to leave number 1 as S and Q motion. You're going to go in and you're going to change number 2. I'm going to leave that S and Q. I'm going to go down to number 2. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to change that to base ISO sensitivity. So let's go up until we find base ISO sensitivity, and we'll select that. I didn't do that very right. Good. Let me come down and do that one more time. Let me do number 2. Sorry, I have it set for off. Base ISO sensitivity. And you push that in and select it. Number 3 is going to be changing to push auto. So you're going to change number 3 to push auto, and I'll be sending out a PDF as this, all the assignable buttons and what they're set for and why. So push auto, that's up. Push auto iris. Okay, so when you push that, it goes down. Now there are 9 assignable buttons on this camera. And a focus hold button on the lens, but the focus hold button doesn't work on the lens on this particular camera. So then we're going to go down to 4, and we're going to leave 4. We're going to leave it as focus magnifier, but you're going to actually go in there and change that to focus magnifier times 6. That's say 6x digital zoom on your viewfinder to help you focus a little bit better. 5 we're going to leave as direct menu. 6 we're going to make touch operation. So this is the touch operation. If you go back down in here, so you can turn it off whether or not you want to use the touch on this. Now, assign button number 6 is kind of hidden under the inside of your right handle, so it's a little difficult to find. And they put it all the way down here at the end because not one that's used much. And then 7, we're going to go in and we're going to change for record review. This is so, it's all the way down here at the bottom. There we go, record review. So if you hit this button, button number 7, it will automatically go back into playback for 3 seconds. And so that's right on the top handle, so you got to kind of be careful about that. Next to that camera, next to that button is assign button number 8, and we're going to change that to marker. And marker is the is where you will be setting up our rule of thirds grid on this camera. So that's how you'll turn your rule of thirds grid on and off. And 9 is automatically set for signal monitor, so that doesn't change at all. So 9 stays the same, and then focus hold button is focus hold on this. But we are not using focus hold because it doesn't actually work on this particular lens. This is a zoom lens, but this is not. It doesn't work on the servo on this camera. So the servo zooms on this camera don't work. And then we're going to go down, and we're going to go down to the multi-function dial. And this is kind of a really cool thing that we're going to do here. And we're going to go through the, and it's usually off, but what we're going to do is we're going to go into this and we're going to change it for iris. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So that means anytime you want to iris up and down, you just go to that multifunction dial that you are using to navigate through the menu. And if you're not in a menu page, it will allow you to iris up and down. So that's pretty cool. And then we're going to go back, and we're going to go back. I think that's the last one we're changing in there. Yep. So we're getting out of that. Okay. And you can see the next one down is paint. And we're not really doing anything in paint at all. So let me go back and go back out of this. And so paint look, we're not really changing anything in paint look. And if you go in here, you can set up a scene file, which is something that you're going to be doing in a couple months from now. But you can go in and change all the detail in the matrix and basic. And you can really screw up your camera if you go in here and start tweaking around with these. So that's why we're going to kind of lock this out for you and have you using the user menu only. Next, we're going to go down to Timecode Media, and this is one of the big ones. Okay, so Timecode is a control pulse that's put on the in the vertical interval of your video signal. You don't need to know anything. You think about it as like the old VHS machines that had a countdown timer on it, but this is in hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. And it's embedded in your video, on the part of the video that you actually can't see. It's always there. So you can use it if you're shooting multi-cameras to sync up cameras together so that all in post, everything is, you don't have to go through that tedious process of syncing all the cameras. Or you can use it to make notes if you're out in the field shooting like narrative scenes and stuff, and you have good takes and bad takes, and you can write down the time code of the good takes. So that way in post, they can go right to that time code and easily find that. So there are a couple little things here you have to change. It's set up for record run, which is great, which is what we want. And you're going to go in here and go into preset, and then you're going to change that for the time of day. And that's you hit preset and go in there and preset. Okay, that's it. And preset, record run, and then you go down to your settings. And so I'm going to change that. And again, it's hours, so I'm going to change that. Oop, come back up, enter that 1, and it's 27. So I'm going to go 28, just to be a minute ahead. 28, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then you go to set and hit set. Okay, so that's all you have to do there. It's automatically set when you're in high def for non-drop frame, and we'll talk later on down further classes about the difference between non-drop and drop frame. And then let's see, that's it. And this is also, if you don't have the user menu set up, by the way, this is where you would come in and format your media. So if you want to format your media, that's what you're going to do. We're also going to change clip name in here. So what I want you to do is I want you to go down to clip name format. And I want you to go in and you're going to type in a prefix. So what I want you to do is type in your first name. So all you got to do is go in, and you probably want to go back on this. So you want to go back down here at the bottom, go all the way down. So this is a bit of a pain if you've ever used these kind of scroll menus. Go back, 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 and then I want you to go up here and I want you to type your first name. So I'm just going to put Randy in here. And RAN, and you can also use your the pads to do this as well. You can go up and it's a little bit D, and then again you can see it becomes a little bit easier to use the pads when you're doing this. Randy, and then you go down and hit done. Okay, and so now it says Randy, and I'm going to leave the number set at 0001, and then go back, and so that's it. Now, if you were going to format your media, this is where you would be formatting that right there. Then we're going to get out of that, and we're going to go down to audio. And audio, the audio is where you can set up your input and your output, and you can also determine what you're going to monitor out of the camera. So we're not really changing anything in audio, but I'm going to go through and talk to you about how that's set up. Audio at in here, marker. I'm just looking for this. So yeah, I kind of skipped over monitoring. So let's go back to monitoring here. And this monitoring is the one you're going to be changing a lot of things in. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go output. Both of those are on SDMI, HDMI. You have a serial digital interface output on the back of the camera, which is called the BNC connector, and then you got a full-size HDMI connector on the back for sending stuff out to external recorders and monitors. And then output display, you want both of those on. If you're going to use SDI, you have to get an SDI cable and use that, but it's just a good idea to have both those on. So that will anything that's on your viewfinder will be output to the through those displays, and then display on and off. Now this is where you can determine what you want in your viewfinder, and we'll go through this in the Tuesday live class, and in the assignment. There's a whole assignment on setting up your viewfinder, but there are 54 different things that you can set up on and off, and pretty much everything is on. You know, we've set this up so that everything is going to be on, and with a few exceptions. I think there's one thing in here that is like the lens info, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we turn that on. So we're going to go past that, and we're going to go down to marker. And again, this is where we set up the rule of thirds grid. So if you want to go down, I always turn my center marker on. So that's the first thing I would do. And if you look at this, you can see the center marker. It gives you different ones. And this is a personal preference. Some people like this. If you're into quadrant composition, that's a good thing to have up. And it's a little busy for me. This is the same thing with the center cut out. This is just a small one in the middle, and this is a small one in the middle with the center. And then you can have that off. I tend to like again, a personal preference, but I tend to like to have 3 up. Safety zones are just showing you zones for different areas. 90%, 80%. That's 90% is TV safe, 80% is graphic safe, and then you can change those on and turn all those, and you don't want to have to worry about any of that. We're not doing any of that. What we're going to go down to is we're going to go down here and we're going to turn on the guide frame, and so we want to turn that on. And when we do that, you can see it put a rule of thirds grid up in the viewfinder. That's what Sony calls the rule of thirds grid. So we're going to get out of that. Let me make sure, and you're just turning the rule of thirds grid on that, and that's it. And then we're going to go down to peaking and zebra. We're going to get back out of that, and we're going to go down to viewfinder settings only. Let you change the brightness and color, and you leave it at 8. If you crank that up, you're going to go through batteries. So in peaking, you want to turn this on. So we want to turn this on, and this is going to be this is a button on the left side of your monitor. So but we're going to turn this on, and you want your level at mid. If it's on low or high, you're going to get false level indicators. And then you want this, it's really a personal preference, but we'd like you to start out in this class on red. Down the road, you can change it to anything else, but for right now, so it's easy for me to see whether or not you're in focus on something, change that to red. And then peaking is one of the 2 focusing aids that you have on the camera, along with that 6x digital zoom that you can put in your viewfinder. And then zebra are your exposure aids on this camera. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, and again, this is one of the 3 buttons on the left side of your viewfinder on your camera. So we're not going to turn this. Let's turn it on just so you have it on. Okay, I'm going to go into on and off, and I'm going to turn this on. And you can change whether or not you want zebra 1 or zebra 2. And you want to change this to zebra 2 and turn zebra 2 on. So that should be on zebra 2. We got zebra 1 set at 70. We got it set at 70 because that's Caucasian skin tone, where the Caucasian skin tone is exposed properly. The 10%, this is an aperture that you can set between 2 and 20%. We have it set for 10% here, and we're going to keep it at that. And that allows you to see zebra stripes on zebra 1 from 65 to 75 IRE. And that's important because that's the entire skin tone range from dark skin to paisley white skin tone. Now, zebra 2, you're going to change. So 100% is where it's norm factory preset at. We're going to dial this down to 90. So that's 90 IRE on this camera is where you start losing 89, 90 IRE is where you start losing detail in the whites and overexposing it. So we want to make sure that you don't do that. So that's why that becomes an aid to be able to do that. So we're going to go back and we're going to get out of that. We're done with that. And we're going to go back down to audio. And again, there's nothing we're going to change in audio, but I just want to go through and show you that you can change your inputs. Right now we're going to have, channel, I'm sorry, we are going to change this. I'm glad I looked at this. You're going to go in and you're going to change channel 1 input to input 1, and you're going to change channel 2 into input to input 1 as well. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to plug the shotgun mic into input 1, and then we're going to feed that to both channels. 3 and 4 should stay internal microphone, and the rest of this you don't have to set up at all or worry about really. Audio output, this is where you can go in and change what you're monitoring. And so if you go in here and change this, I would change this to be channels 1 and channels 2. And you can change from 3 and 4. We're going to be using channel 1 and channel 2. Turn up your volume because right now it's off. So you can make this an assignable button down the road, but crank it all the way up. There's a tremendous amount of digital headroom on this. And then headphone out. This is personal preference, but I would probably go mono. And when you go mono, you hear channel 1 in one ear and channel 2 in one ear. And since we're going to be setting channel 1 for manual and channel 2 for auto, good idea to know that instead of doing stereo where you hear both channel 1 and channel 2 in both ears. So that's what you want to do. And then you don't have to worry about any of the rest of this. So you go back and get out of that, and then we're going to go back and get out of audio. And thumbnails grayed out, and so you're going to go into technical. Now again, technical are things that you're just going to be using to kind of set up the camera with. And so what I'm going, and again, this is kind of a personal preference, but I'm going to advise you this is how I set it up. You're going to go in this, and you're going to go down to tally. And so tally is your front and rear record lights that come on. And so I usually turn my front light off. And that's because sometimes I'm recording rehearsals and stuff where I don't want my talent to know that I'm recording, or if I'm just out in the street recording and clandestinely recording stuff. I don't want people to know I'm always recording, but I leave my rear viewfinder on, rear tally light on, so that I know I'm recording all the time. So that's, again, a personal preference, but I'd have you switch that in this class. You're also going to go down, I just want to show you the touch operation on this. We're going to go down to touch. Oh, past that. Okay, right there at the bottom, I think. We're going to go by it. Touch operation. So right now it's on. We're going to turn that off. That may change over the 4 weeks since this is a brand new camera. By the way, this is a brand new camera. Okay, so you want to turn that off so that you don't accidentally hit that stuff. And then you're going to go down to lens. And this is another one here. Before I do this, I just want to show you on the zoom handle. You have two different types of zooms on this. Optical zoom and then clear image zoom. This is the 2x digital zoom that you can put in your camera. And so it's good that you know that and you can play around with that, but don't use it in the class because you'll never learn focal length if you do that, because it would just tell you this weird, focal length times 1 or something. And so this is where we're going to go back and set up our user menu. The fan, this has a fan in it. You can't turn the fan off, but you can turn it down to minimum if you're in a really small room recording a very intimate conversation and interview. Although your LED lights are going to be louder in this fan, so even in off mode you can't turn it off. Don't set it in anything but auto, because if you do, the camera may overheat. Lens, this is one of the ones that you're going to change. And you're going to go down to distance display, and you're going to change this from meters to feet, since we're still on the metrics, haven't gone to the metric system in the United States. And then you're going to change this, leave this to number. That's just number and bar, and both of those are really not that great to do. A video light, we're not using a video light, but Sony makes a video light set that you can put into this and put into the top hot shoe, and if you set it up here so it's a power link, it will turn that light on when you hit the record button and turn it off. APR, you'll see the camera pop up every now and then say APR needs to be set. Put the lens cap on your camera and hit the execute button. APR stands for automatic pixel repair. So every now and then pixels become bad in the camera, and they show up as little hot spots and little white dots in your thing. So if you see white dots on there, you can go in here and change this, but the camera will automatically walk you through this and change it for you. And so if you hit execute, it's going to ask you to put the lens cap on the camera. So I wouldn't worry about that right now, but anytime you see that come up, just know that you can do this. This is just alarms that when your battery gets below a certain point, it's going to give you an alarm saying that, hey, your battery's low. So that's it. Network, we're not touching at all on this. If you go in here and look at access authentication, You can set up a username and password in here as well for people to go in, so they can't go in and change anything. Again, you don't have to do any of that. And in terms of this, when you first turned your camera on, it asks you to set your time of day. You need to set your language for your preference. We have students from all over the world, so I see different ones. Clock set, again, set this for the time of day. UTC, Universal Time. This took the place of GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, and I'll put an ad in a link in the menu thing where you can go in and tell kind of where you're at. Personal preference here again, year, month, date. We usually do month, day, year. So you might want to change that. And then I'm not a big military 24-hour guy, so I would change that to 12 hours and then make sure you got the date and you got the current time. So that will change as soon as I get out of this and turn the camera back on, so it's not military time. If you want to go back, if your camera's acting really funky and doing all kinds of weird stuff and you're not sure what's going on, you can go back and hit reset. And reset without network is something if you're doing networking stuff on this, just reset. But when you hit reset, it converts your camera to factory preset. So you really want to be careful about doing that. Hours and meters. This is just telling you how many hours the system has been running, and if you hit reset on there, how many hours since reset. And the version is telling you the firmware version for both the camera and the lens. There have not been any firmware version updates on there. There's a couple that you can go into the Sony Pro site and look at that are update, but nothing that we're using that has to do primarily with exporting raw footage out of this camera to an external recorder. And so that's basically it. That's the entire menu setup. And then we're going to go through a setup where we're going to walk you through how to set up and do a custom menu.